She told me on a Tuesday, not during a fight, not after I'd done something wrong, just on a random Tuesday evening while I was cleaning paint off my hands at the kitchen sink. "I'm marrying someone else," Claire said. I turned off the faucet. The silence filled the kitchen like water rising in a locked room. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, watching me with the expression she used at work when firing someone. Professional, detached, already moved on. "When did you decide this?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "I suppose not." Claire shifted her weight. She'd expected tears, maybe, shouting, something she could use later when she told her version to friends. I dried my hands on the towel, taking my time with each finger. "His name is Brandon," she continued. "Brandon Keller. He's in sales management. We've been seeing each other for 7 months. 7 months. I did the math quickly. That would put the start right around last March, when she'd joined that new gym downtown, the one with the corporate memberships. "So you've had this planned," I said. "I wouldn't call it planned. Things just happened." "Things don't just happen, Claire. You make choices. You made 7 months of choices." She uncrossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "You're taking this very calmly. Would you prefer I throw something?" "I'd prefer you show some emotion. This is our marriage ending." I folded the towel and placed it on the counter. "Fine. Go live with him." The words came out flat, simple, like I was agreeing to switch cable providers. Claire's eyes narrowed. "That's it? What else do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something. Anything." She stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in her expression. Uncertainty, like she'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen ways in her head, and none of them included me just accepting it. "I'll move out this weekend," she said. "I've already got a place lined up. Brandon's lease is up next month, so we'll consolidate then." Consolidate. She used business language even for this. I wondered if she'd made a spreadsheet. "What about the house?" I asked. "We can deal with that later. Through lawyers." "Of course. Through lawyers." Claire grabbed her purse from the counter. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight. I'll come by Saturday for my things. I'll be at Mike's job site all day. Take whatever you want." She paused at the doorway, hand on the frame. "Jack, I didn't plan to hurt you." "But you did it anyway. We grew apart. Surely you felt it too." I met her eyes then, really looked at her for the first time in months. The woman I'd married 10 years ago was still there, somewhere, buried under layers of ambition and carefully constructed image. But she'd made herself unreachable long before Brandon Keller entered the picture. "I felt it," I said quietly. Something in my tone made her hesitate. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked out. The front door clicked shut with a sound like a lock tumbling into place. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she left. The house settled around me with small creaks and sighs. 10 years of marriage. 17 years together total if you counted the dating years. And it ended with a Tuesday evening conversation that lasted maybe 5 minutes. The rational part of my brain, the part that calculated measurements and mixed paint ratios and solved structural problems for a living, started cataloging details. 7 months, March, the gym membership, the new clothes she'd bought, the late nights at the office that had become routine, the way she'd stopped asking about my day. All of it had been there. I'd just chosen not to see it. I walked through the house, room by room, seeing it now through different eyes. The living room furniture we'd picked out together. The bedroom where we'd stopped touching each other months ago. The garage where my tools hung in organized rows, everything in its place, everything serving a purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from Mike Donovan, my project partner. "Tomorrow's drywall delivery confirmed for 7 a.m. You good?" I texted back. "I'm good." But I wasn't good. Something had shifted inside me during that 5-minute conversation. Something Claire hadn't noticed because she'd been too busy delivering her prepared speech. She'd looked at me and seen a man who would simply accept her decision. A man who would fade quietly into the background while she moved forward with her upgraded life. She'd looked at me and seen someone powerless. That was her first mistake. I went to the garage and opened my laptop, the one I used for project planning and material ordering. My fingers moved across the keyboard with purpose now, pulling up information, cross-referencing details, building a picture. Brandon Keller, sales management. I found his LinkedIn profile in under 2 minutes. District manager for a medical supply company. His profile photo showed a man in his late 30s, expensive haircut, suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. The kind of guy who smiled with too many teeth. I scrolled through his connections. There was Claire, listed among his professional network. 7 months ago, she'd connected with him. The timeline matched perfectly. His Facebook was semi-private, but his Instagram wasn't. I scrolled through months of posts, gym selfies, motivational quotes, photos from business conferences in cities Claire had claimed to be visiting for training. One photo from 4 months ago showed Brandon at an outdoor restaurant, wine glass raised. In the blurred background, barely visible, was a woman with Claire's distinctive auburn hair. 4 months ago, we'd celebrated our anniversary. She'd given me a watch. I'd taken her to the Italian place she liked. We'd come home and gone to separate rooms like roommates. I saved the photo. Then I started making notes. Not in anger, not in grief. Just collecting data points like I would for any project. Understanding the blueprint before beginning work. Claire thought this was over. She'd delivered her news, made her arrangements, and assumed I would process it with the same professional detachment she'd shown. But she'd forgotten something about me. Something everyone forgot because I was quiet and steady and worked with my hands instead of my mouth. I was very, very good at solving problems, and I had just been presented with a very specific problem. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of Claire's car in the driveway. I'd spent Friday night at Mike's job site like I'd said, measuring rooms for the bathroom renovation we were starting Monday. Mike had sensed something off and asked if I was okay. I'd told him Claire and I were separating. He'd nodded, said he was sorry, and handed me a beer. That was Mike. No drama, no probing questions. Just acknowledgement and a cold drink. Now I listened from the garage as Claire made multiple trips from house to car. Her footsteps were quick, efficient. She'd brought boxes. I heard the scrape of cardboard against the hallway walls, the muffled bumps of furniture being moved. I'd expected her to take the obvious things, clothes, jewelry, personal items. But through the window, I watched her load my grandmother's antique side table, the one that had been in my family for 3 generations. Then, the expensive coffee maker we'd received as a wedding gift. Then, the good dishes. She wasn't just taking her things, she was taking whatever had value. I stayed in the garage, pretending to organize tools, watching through the dusty window as she made trip after trip. Around noon, a silver BMW pulled up behind her sedan. Brandon Keller stepped out. This was my first real look at him in person. He was exactly what his photos suggested. Expensive casual wear, the kind of deliberate stubble that required maintenance, confident stride. He walked up to Claire and kissed her on the mouth. Right there in my driveway. She said something to him. He laughed. Then he grabbed 2 boxes and carried them to his car. He was helping her move out of my house. The logical part of my brain noted the details. The way he moved with practiced ease. The way Claire touched his arm, familiar and comfortable. The way he surveyed the neighborhood like he was already mentally calculating property values. They made 3 more trips together, then loaded what looked like my good toolbox into his trunk. That toolbox had been a birthday gift from my father 20 years ago. Inside were specialized instruments I'd collected over 2 decades of professional work. Claire knew what that toolbox meant to me. Brandon closed the trunk and said something that made Claire smile. They kissed again. Then he got in his BMW and drove away, leaving her to finish alone. She didn't knock on the garage door, didn't check if I was actually gone, just finished loading her car, closed the front door, and left. I heard her engine start, then fade down the street. I waited 10 minutes before going inside. The house looked like it had been ransacked by someone who knew exactly what they wanted. Her closet was empty. The master bathroom had been stripped of everything expensive. In the living room, gaps on the shelves marked where she'd taken books, picture frames, decorative items we'd bought together. She'd left the cheap furniture. The TV was old, so it stayed. The couch had a stain from when I'd spilled paint thinner, so it stayed. She'd taken an inventory of our shared life and extracted everything with resale value. In the kitchen, I opened the drawer where we kept important documents. The folder with our marriage certificate was gone. So were the titles to both cars, the insurance papers, and the deed to the house. So were the titles to both cars. I checked the garage. My truck was still there. She'd taken the title but not the vehicle, probably assuming I wouldn't notice until she filed paperwork claiming it as part of her settlement. I called my bank, checked the accounts. Our joint checking had been emptied except for $57. The savings account we'd been building for 10 years, gone. Transferred yesterday morning according to the transaction history. She'd planned this carefully, probably had a lawyer already lined up, had probably been moving money for months, taking just enough that I wouldn't notice the pattern until it was too late. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop, started documenting everything, photographed the empty rooms, screenshot the bank transfers, compiled a timeline of every suspicious behavior over the past 7 months. Then I pulled up Brandon's information again, looked deeper this time. His company, MedSupply Regional Group, had a public directory. Brandon Keller, District Sales Manager. I found his office address, his work phone, his professional email. I found his home address too. A condo complex downtown, the kind with valet parking and a gym on the first floor. Monthly rent around $3,000, on a sales manager's salary, affordable but not lavish. I found his ex-wife's name from property records. They'd divorced 2 years ago. She'd kept the house in the suburbs. He'd taken this condo. I found his parking violations, his business license, his property tax records. I found everything. The house felt different now. Empty spaces where furniture had been, echo where conversation used to be. But it wasn't sadness I felt. It was clarity. Claire had made assumptions about me, that I was simple, predictable, that I would be too hurt or too passive to do anything but accept her decisions. Brandon had made assumptions too, that he was better than me, smarter, more successful, more deserving of the life Claire offered. They were both wrong. Sunday, I drove to the job site where Mike and I were starting the renovation. The house belonged to a middle-aged couple named the Morgans, who wanted their master bathroom completely redone. High-end fixtures, heated floors, the works. Mike was already there, reviewing the plans. He looked up when I arrived. "You doing okay, man?" "I'm fine." "Claire get everything sorted?" "More or less." Mike nodded, not pushing. We spent the next hour going over measurements, discussing timeline, coordinating with the electrician who'd need to reroute some wiring. Normal work, normal conversation. But my mind was elsewhere, calculating different kinds of measurements. Around noon, Mike's phone rang. He answered, listened, then swore quietly. "Tile delivery's delayed until Wednesday," he said. "Supplier screwed up the order. That'll push us back 3 days. "Yeah, I'll call the Morgans. Let them know." He paused. "You want to grab lunch? My treat. You look like you could use normal conversation." We went to the diner 2 blocks away, ordered burgers and coffee. Mike talked about the project, about his kids' soccer games, about normal life continuing while mine had fractured. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Sure. You're being really calm about all this. The Claire situation. What should I be instead? I don't know. Angry? Upset? Most guys I know would be losing their minds. I took a drink of coffee. Being upset doesn't solve problems. So you're just… What? Over it? I'm processing it. Mike studied me across the table. That's what worries me. Why? Because I've known you 8 years, Jack, and I've never seen you process anything fast. You think, you plan, you measure twice and cut once. He leaned back. I'm just saying, be careful, whatever you're thinking about doing. I'm not thinking about doing anything. Right. We finished lunch and went back to the job site, spent the afternoon pulling up old flooring, preparing the space for new work. Physical labor that required focus but not much thought. The kind of work that let my mind wander. That evening I drove past Brandon's condo complex. Didn't stop, didn't slow down, obviously. Just noted the layout, the entrance, the parking garage, the security cameras near the front desk. Then I drove to Claire's sister's house, where she'd said she was staying. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I drove to Brandon's building again. Parked a block away this time. Waited. At 8:15, Claire's sedan pulled into the parking garage. She'd lied about staying at her sister's. She'd been at Brandon's condo the whole time. I drove home and added this information to my growing file. Timeline, locations, patterns. The foundation of any good project was accurate information. You couldn't build without knowing exactly what you were working with. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Jack, this is Laura Benton from Keystone Realty. Claire asked me to reach out about listing your property. Could we schedule a time to discuss? I stared at the message. Claire had already contacted a real estate agent. She was planning to force the sale of our house. I texted back. I'll need to review some paperwork first. Can you send me your standard seller's agreement? Laura responded immediately with a PDF attachment and her contact information. I opened the document and started reading. Studied every clause, every requirement, every timeline. Knowledge was the foundation. Understanding how systems worked, how processes unfolded, how one action led inevitably to the next. Claire thought she was 10 steps ahead. She'd planned this, prepared, executed with business school precision. But she'd made one critical error in her planning. She'd assumed I wouldn't plan back. Monday morning, I was under a sink at the Morgan house when Mike's phone rang. Yeah? He answered, wedging his phone between shoulder and ear while holding a pipe wrench. Okay. Yeah, he's right here. He handed me the phone. Supplier wants to talk to you about the tile specifications. I took the phone and moved into the hallway. But it wasn't the supplier. It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Mr. Turner? This is Jennifer from Med Supply Regional Group. Your wife listed you as an emergency contact. There's been some confusion with her medical insurance and we need to verify some information. She's not my wife anymore. Silence on the other end. Then, oh, I apologize. Our records must not be updated. I'll make a note. While I have you, I said, does Brandon Keller work in your office? Mr. Keller is one of our district managers, yes. Is he there today? I believe he's in meetings all morning. Can I take a message? No message. Thank you. I hung up and handed the phone back to Mike. Everything okay? He asked. Fine. We worked through the morning, tearing out old fixtures and preparing walls for new plumbing. Around noon, Mike suggested we break for lunch at the sandwich place near his house. We were walking to his truck when a silver BMW pulled into the Morgan's driveway. Brandon Keller stepped out. He wore a charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, shoes polished to mirror brightness. He checked his phone, then looked up at the house with the expression of someone evaluating an investment property. Mike saw him too. Who's that? Nobody important. But Brandon had already spotted us. He walked over with the easy confidence of someone used to dominating rooms. Jack Turner, he said. That's me. He extended his hand. Brandon Keller. I think we have a mutual acquaintance. I looked at his hand, but didn't take it. After a moment, he lowered it. What can I do for you, Brandon? I wanted to introduce myself. Handle this like adults. Handle what exactly? The situation with Claire. I know this is awkward, but I believe in facing things directly. He smiled, showing those two white teeth. I wanted you to know that my intentions are serious. I care about her very much. Mike had taken several steps back, suddenly very interested in his phone. Your intentions, I said slowly, are none of my concern. She made her choice. Right. Good. I'm glad we can be mature about this. Brandon glanced at the Morgan house. You do renovation work? That's right. Honest living. Respectable. The way he said it made it sound like neither. Is there something you actually want, Brandon? Just wanted to clear the air. Claire mentioned you were taking things well, but I wanted to see for myself. Make sure there wouldn't be any complications. Complications. You know how these things can get. Emotions running high, people making poor decisions. He straightened his tie. I've been through a separation myself. I know how tempting it can be to act out. I set down my tool bag slowly, carefully. You drove here to warn me off? I drove here to establish understanding, man to man. Man to man, I repeated. You want to establish understanding with me while you're living with my wife in your downtown condo? Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe, that I knew that detail. Ex-wife, he corrected. Not legally, not yet. A formality. The relationship ended months ago. 7 months, I said, to be specific. His smile faded slightly. Claire told you. Claire told me a lot of things, and what she didn't tell me I figured out. I picked up my tool bag. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. I walked toward Mike's truck. Brandon called after me. Jack, I'm trying to be civil here. I turned back. No, you're trying to make yourself feel better about taking another man's wife. You're trying to convince yourself you did nothing wrong because she chose you. Because you're better, right? More successful, better life, better prospects. I'm not going to apologize for being successful. I'm not asking you to. I took 2 steps closer. Brandon shifted his weight, a tiny unconscious movement backward. But let me establish some understanding, Brandon, man to man. He waited. You came to my job site. You came to where I work, to warn me not to cause complications in your new relationship with my wife. You did this because you're worried, because despite your nice car and your nice suit and your nice confidence, you understand on some level that you're in a vulnerable position. I'm not vulnerable. You took a married woman. You helped her clean out her husband's house. You helped her steal his grandmother's furniture and his father's toolbox. I saw his jaw tighten. Yeah, I saw that. Saturday afternoon. You loaded it right into your trunk. Claire said those were hers. Claire said a lot of things to you, I'm sure, and you believed them all because they made you feel like the hero instead of what you actually are. Brandon's face flushed red. Watch yourself. Or what? You'll do something? Here? In front of my work partner and 3 neighbors who are watching from their windows right now? I smiled, cold and thin. See, that's the difference between us, Brandon. You make threats because you're used to corporate intimidation. I don't make threats. I solve problems. Is that supposed to scare me? No, it's supposed to educate you. I turned away again. Now get off this property before I call the police for trespassing. I got in Mike's truck. Through the side mirror, I watched Brandon stand there for a long moment, fists clenched, face still red. Then he walked back to his BMW and drove away too fast, tires squealing slightly. Mike got in the driver's side. Well, he said, that was intense. We drove in silence for several minutes. Finally, Mike said, "What's your play here, Jack?" No play, just being honest. That wasn't honest. That was strategic. You wanted him scared. Did I scare him? Yeah, you did. Mike glanced over. Question is, what happens next? Nothing happens next. I go back to work. He goes back to his nice condo with my wife. Life continues. Right. Mike didn't sound convinced. We got sandwiches and returned to the job site. Brandon's car was gone, but I noticed a black SUV parked down the street that hadn't been there before. Tinted windows. Engine running. I filed that detail away with everything else. That evening, I received a text from Claire. Brandon said you threatened him. What the hell, Jack? I replied. I didn't threaten anyone. We had a conversation. He said you were hostile and aggressive. He showed up at my job site uninvited. What did you expect? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, just stay away from us, please. Gladly. Tell your boyfriend to extend me the same courtesy. No response after that. I sat on my empty couch in my empty living room and thought about Brandon's face when he'd realized I knew about the condo, about the toolbox, about his presence in my driveway. He'd come to establish dominance, to mark territory, to prove he'd won. Instead, he'd learned that I was paying attention, that I knew more than I should, that I wasn't the passive obstacle he'd expected. His confidence had cracked, just a little, just enough. That was enough to begin with. The Morgan renovation hit an unexpected snag Tuesday morning. The electrician, Tom Reeves, showed up to reroute wiring and discovered old aluminum wiring behind the walls. Building code violation, fire hazard, had to be replaced before we could proceed with anything else. This'll add at least a week, Tom said, running his fingers through graying hair. Maybe 2 plus materials cost. Mike swore quietly. I pulled out my phone and called Mrs. Morgan, explained the situation. She was understanding but frustrated. Her husband had a medical procedure scheduled in 3 weeks, and they'd hoped to have the bathroom functional before then. We'll work fast, I promised, but we can't skip safety. After the call, Mike looked at me. This pushes everything back. The floor guy, the tile installation, everything. I know. We're going to lose money on this job. Probably. Mike studied me. You're taking this very calmly. Things happen on jobs. We adapt. Sure, but usually you're more stressed about timeline changes. I didn't answer. Truth was, my mind was elsewhere. Had been elsewhere since Saturday, running calculations that had nothing to do with construction timelines. Tom spent the morning mapping out what needed to be replaced. Mike coordinated with suppliers. I worked on demolition, methodically removing old drywall to expose the problematic wiring. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Turner, this is Laura Benton again from Keystone Realty. I wanted to follow up about listing your property. I'm still reviewing things. Of course, I should mention, your wife contacted me yesterday. She seemed eager to move forward quickly. I'm sure she did. She also mentioned you were served separation papers. I stopped mid-swing with the sledgehammer. I wasn't served anything. Oh, well, she seemed to think, never mind. That's between you and your attorney. Laura cleared her throat. I did want to mention that based on market analysis, your property should list for approximately $480,000. After fees and division of assets, you'd each walk away with roughly $200,000. Assuming we're splitting equally. Well, yes, standard practice in most separations. Even if one party emptied all joint accounts and stole personal property? Silence. Then carefully. Mr. Turner, if there are disputes about asset division, you'll need to work that out with legal counsel. I only handle the real estate transaction. Of course. Thank you for the information. I hung up and stood in the demolished bathroom, drywall dust coating my clothes and hair, thinking about Claire's aggressive timeline. She wanted this done fast, wanted the house sold, money divided, connections severed. She wanted to move forward with Brandon without me as an inconvenient obstacle. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from a number I recognized, my cousin David, who worked in property management. Hey man, heard about you and Claire. Sorry. Listen, random question. You know anyone looking for commercial warehouse space? Got a client desperate to sublet. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I called David. Jack, how you holding up? I'm fine. Tell me about this warehouse space. Oh, it's a whole thing. Client signed a 3-year lease for distribution center, then lost their major contract. Now they're stuck paying $15,000 a month with no revenue coming in. Where's the space? Industrial Park off Route 42, 20,000 square feet, loading docks, climate controlled. Beautiful facility, just empty. And they want to sublet? Desperately. Would take any legitimate tenant at this point, even at reduced rate. I thought about Brandon Keller, district sales manager for Med Supply Regional Group, company that distributed medical equipment across 3 states, company that needed warehouse space. Your client open to short-term contracts? I asked. They need someone who'll take minimum 6 months, but yeah, flexible on terms. Why? You know someone? Maybe. Let me make some calls. After hanging up, I pulled up MedSupply's corporate website, found their public financial reports, read through recent press releases. They'd just lost a major contract with a hospital network, were restructuring their distribution model, had closed 2 regional warehouses in the past year. Brandon's district was struggling, which meant Brandon was struggling, which meant he was under pressure to perform, to prove his value, to secure his position. I made notes, cross-referenced information, built a picture. Then I called David back. Your desperate client. Have them contact MedSupply Regional Group. Ask for Brandon Keller. Tell him you have warehouse space available. Perfect for medical supply distribution. Great terms for the right contract. You think they'll bite? I think they'll be very interested. Cool. I'll pass it along. Hey, you doing okay? For real? Getting there. That evening, Mike and I worked late at the job site, making up for lost time from the wiring discovery. Around 8, we packed up tools and headed to our trucks. You've been distracted all day, Mike said. Want to talk about it? Nothing to talk about. Come on, Jack, I'm not blind. You've been on your phone constantly, and you've got that look. What look? The look you get when you're solving a complicated structural problem, measuring angles, calculating load-bearing capacity. Except this time it's not about construction. I loaded my tool bag into the truck bed. Claire contacted a real estate agent, wants to force sale of the house. Can she do that? Eventually. If I refuse to cooperate, she can file legal motions. But it takes time. So you're buying time. I'm understanding the situation. Mike leaned against his truck, arms crossed. You know what worries me? What? You're too calm. This isn't normal calm. This is calculated calm. And I've known you long enough to know that when you start calculating, it means you're building toward something. Building toward survival. Is that what you call it? I met his eyes. She took everything, Mike. The money, the property, my father's tools. She planned this for months while lying to my face every single day. She brought her boyfriend to my house to help load stolen possessions. And now she wants to force me out of the home I've lived in for 10 years, so she can split the proceeds and start fresh with her new life. So what are you going to do? Nothing illegal. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer you're getting. Mike studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed. Just be careful. Whatever you're planning, be really careful. Always am. I drove home through empty streets, mind working through timelines and connections and possibilities. At a red light, I saw a silver BMW 2 cars ahead. Not Brandon's, wrong license plate. But the sight of it triggered something. Brandon drove a BMW, leased probably on a sales manager's salary. Image-conscious lease to project success. Which meant he needed that sales manager position, needed the income, needed to prove himself valuable to a company that was already contracting. If his district failed to secure new contracts, if his numbers didn't improve, if he couldn't demonstrate value, he became expendable. The light turned green. The BMW ahead turned left. I continued straight. When I got home, I pulled up Brandon's LinkedIn again, looked at his employment history. 3 jobs in 7 years. Serial job hopper climbing the corporate ladder, each position slightly higher than the last. Each one left after 2 or 3 years. Ambitious, opportunistic, willing to jump ship when better prospects appeared. Just like he jumped into a relationship with a married woman. My phone buzzed. Text from Claire. "We need to talk about the house. Can you meet Thursday?" I replied, "Where and when?" "Coffee place on Market Street, 2 p.m.? Fine." I set the phone down and opened my laptop. Pulled up the file I'd been building. Added new information from today. Cross-referenced timelines. Claire wanted to talk Thursday. That gave me 3 days. 3 days to make sure I understood every detail. 3 days to prepare. Because if there was one thing I'd learned from 15 years doing renovation work, it was this. You never start demolition until you know exactly what you're working with. And I was just beginning to understand what I was working with. Thursday morning started with a call from Tom Reeves. "We've got a problem with the Morgan job." I was on my 3rd coffee, sitting at my empty kitchen table reviewing notes. "What kind of problem?" "Inspection failed. The permits weren't filed correctly. Someone checked the wrong boxes on the electrical variance form." "How long to fix it?" 2, maybe 3 days. But it'll cost us. Rushed processing fees, re-inspection charges. We're looking at $1,200 extra, minimum. Mike would be furious. We were already over budget on the Morgan job, and now this. I told Tom to fix whatever needed fixing and hung up. My phone buzzed immediately. Text from Mike. "Just heard from Tom. What the actual heck happened?" I replied, "Administrative error, getting corrected. This job is turning into a nightmare. We'll manage." But Mike was right. Everything on this project was going wrong in small ways that added up to major delays and costs. Under normal circumstances, it would consume all my attention. These weren't normal circumstances. At 1 p.m. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and drove to the coffee place on Market Street. Arrived 20 minutes early, ordered black coffee, sat in a corner booth with clear sightlines to the entrance. Claire arrived at 2 exactly. She wore a business suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Professional armor. She spotted me, approached, sat down without ordering anything. "Thank you for meeting," she said. "You said we needed to talk." "About the house. Laura Benton sent over preliminary paperwork. I need you to sign so we can list it." "I'm not signing anything yet." Her expression tightened. "Jack, don't be difficult. This is standard procedure. The house sells, we split the proceeds, everyone moves forward. Everyone except me. You'll get your share. 200,000 is nothing to dismiss. After you already took 70,000 from our joint accounts." Claire's face went carefully blank. "Those accounts were mine too. They were ours. You emptied them without discussion. I took what I was entitled to. You took everything, including things that weren't entitled to anyone, like my father's toolbox. That was an accident. Brandon thought he could take whatever he wanted, just like you." She stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly. Several customers glanced over. Claire noticed, forced herself to sit back down, lowered her voice. "I'm not doing this with you. I'm not going to let you make me feel guilty for leaving a relationship that wasn't working. I don't want you to feel guilty. I want you to understand consequences." "What consequences?" "Real estate transactions take time. Inspections, appraisals, market conditions. Could be months before we see any money. Meanwhile, you're living in Brandon's condo, splitting his rent. How's that working out?" Something flickered in her eyes. "That's none of your concern. You made it my concern when you tried to force liquidate our shared assets to fund your new life." Claire pulled out her phone, checked it, put it away. A nervous gesture. "Brandon and I are fine. Is he here? Why would he be here? Because you keep checking your phone. Because you've got that look you get when you're coordinating schedules. Because this whole meeting feels staged." She didn't deny it, just stared at me with calculation in her expression. "What do you want, Jack?" I want you to stop trying to rush this. We'll sell the house when it makes financial sense, not before. I need to move forward. Then move forward. I'm not stopping you, but I'm not signing away my legal rights to property just because you're impatient. Claire leaned forward, voice dropping to almost a whisper. You're angry. I get it. But dragging this out won't change anything. Brandon and I are together. That's not changing. The sooner we finalize everything, the sooner we can both move on. Tell me something, I said. Did he promise you this would be easy? Did he tell you I'd just accept it? Sign the papers? Take my share? Disappear quietly? This conversation is over. She stood again, grabbed her purse. My lawyer will contact you about the house. Enjoy dragging this out, Jack. It'll just cost you more in legal fees. She walked out. Through the window, I watched her cross the parking lot to her car. But she didn't get in immediately. She stood there, phone to her ear, talking to someone. Her body language was agitated, arms moving, pacing in small circles. After 2 minutes, a silver BMW pulled into the lot. Brandon got out. He was too far away for me to hear their conversation, but their body language told the story. Claire was upset. Brandon was defensive. They argued for maybe 30 seconds before he put his arm around her shoulders and guided her to his car. They drove away together, leaving her sedan in the lot. I finished my coffee slowly, processing what I'd just seen. Claire needed money. Needed it enough to meet with me, to push for quick sale, to bring Brandon as backup insurance, which meant things weren't as stable as she wanted to believe. My phone buzzed. Text from David, my cousin. Your tip paid off. Med Supply contacted my client about warehouse space. Meeting scheduled next week. Thanks, man. I stared at that message. Then I smiled. The second text came from an unknown number. Mr. Turner, this is Tom Reeves. I wanted to give you a heads up. Your wife called me this morning asking about project timelines and budgets. Wanted to know if you were financially sound, thought you should know. I called Tom immediately. What exactly did she ask? If you'd been paying me on time, if the business was struggling, if you'd mentioned financial problems. I told her it was none of her business and hung up, but figured you should hear it from me. I appreciate that. No problem. She sounded stressed, desperate almost. After hanging up, I sat in my truck piecing together new information. Claire was checking my financial stability, which meant she was worried I'd fight the house sale, which meant she needed that money more urgently than I'd thought. Why? I drove to Brandon's condo building, parked a block away where I had a clear view of the entrance. Waited. At 6:30, Claire's sedan pulled into the visitor parking. She got out, shoulders slumped, exhaustion in every line of her body. She walked into the building like someone heading to a difficult conversation. I waited another hour. Lights came on in a fourth-floor unit. Shadows moved behind curtains. Then, at 7:45, Brandon's BMW screeched into the parking garage, taking the turn too fast. He got out, slammed his door, stalked toward the building entrance. 10 minutes later, the lights in that fourth-floor unit went out. I drove home, added these observations to my file. That night I received an email from Laura Benton. Subject line, Urgent Property Listing. The message explained that Claire had authorized her to move forward with listing preparation. Would I be available for photos next week? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and reviewed everything I'd gathered. Timeline of Claire's affair, Brandon's job history, Med Supply's financial struggles, the warehouse opportunity David's client had offered, Tom Reeves's call about Claire checking my finances. Patterns emerged, connections formed. Claire needed money because Brandon's job was unstable. Brandon needed to prove his value to his company. His company needed cost-effective distribution solutions, and I'd just handed them an opportunity that looked perfect but would eventually prove catastrophic. Because the warehouse space David's client was offering came with specific contract terms that included performance penalties if certain quotas weren't met, terms that put financial responsibility on the lessee if the sublet agreement ended early. Terms that Brandon, desperate to show his district's value, wouldn't read carefully enough. My phone buzzed. Text from Mike. Inspection cleared. We're good to proceed Monday. I texted back. Good news. But the Morgan job didn't matter anymore. It was background noise. Revenue to keep things running while the real work unfolded elsewhere. The real work was in understanding how people made decisions when they felt pressure, how they took shortcuts when they felt desperate, how they stopped paying attention to details when they thought they'd already won. Claire thought she'd won when I agreed to meet her, when I didn't make a scene, when I let her walk away from that coffee shop feeling like she'd maintained control. Brandon thought he'd won when he showed up at my job site and delivered his warning, when he helped himself to my possessions, when he took my wife and assumed I was too simple to retaliate. They'd both made the same fundamental mistake. They'd assumed I was predictable. The warehouse deal closed faster than anyone expected. David called me Monday morning, voice excited. Your lead was golden. MedSupply signed a 6-month sublet with option to extend. My client is thrilled. Brandon Keller personally negotiated terms. That's great. How'd you know they'd be interested? Just a guess. Well, guess more often. I might throw some commission your way. I thanked him and hung up. Sat in my truck outside the Morgan house, engine running, heat pouring from the vents against the November cold. Brandon had signed the warehouse contract, which meant he'd committed his district to performance metrics they'd struggled to meet, which meant pressure, which meant mistakes, which meant opportunity. Mike knocked on my window. You coming in? Tom's already started on the upstairs wiring. We worked through the morning, normal construction work, measuring, cutting, installing. But my mind tracked different calculations. Around noon, my phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. This is Brandon. We need to talk. Today. I didn't respond immediately. Made him wait 90 minutes while I finished installing bathroom fixtures with Mike. Finally, at 1:30. Where? Park on Riverside, 3 p.m. I arrived at 2:45, parked near the walking path that ran along the river. November had stripped the trees, leaving skeletal branches against gray sky. Cold wind cut across the water. Brandon's BMW was already there. He stood near a bench overlooking the water, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders hunched against the wind. I walked up slowly. Let him hear my footsteps. Let him turn and face me. Thanks for meeting, he said. You said it was urgent. It is. He glanced around. The park was empty except for a jogger in the distance. I wanted to discuss something without Claire knowing. Why? Because it involves you, and me, and a situation that's gotten complicated. I waited. Brandon shifted his weight. I know you're angry. I know this whole situation has been difficult, but I need you to understand something. Claire and I didn't plan this. It just happened. You said that already. At my job site, remember? Right. But I don't think you understood what I meant. I don't think you understand how serious we are. So you brought me to an empty park to tell me your relationship is serious. Could have done that over text. No. Brandon's jaw tightened. I brought you here because you've been interfering with my work. Someone contacted my company about warehouse space. Someone who had specific information about our distribution needs. Someone who seemed to know exactly what contract terms would appeal to my district. I said nothing. That was you, wasn't it? Was it? Don't play games, I'm not stupid. You arranged that whole thing. Why would I do that? To make me look bad, to create problems, to interfere with my job. Did it work? Brandon took a step closer. Listen carefully. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but it ends now. Claire is with me. Your marriage is over. Accept it and move on. Or what? Or things get complicated for you too. I have resources, connections. I can make your life very difficult. Can you? Yes, I can. He was close enough now that I could see tension in his neck, smell coffee on his breath. I can file harassment charges. I can contact your business partners, let them know you're mentally unstable. I can make it very hard for you to find work in this town. That's a lot of threats, Brandon. It's not threats. It's reality. You need to understand your position here. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the expensive coat and styled hair and practiced confidence. Saw the fear underneath. The desperation of someone who'd overextended himself and was starting to realize it. My position, I said quietly, is exactly where I want it to be. What's that supposed to mean? It means you came to my job site. You took my wife. You helped yourself to my property. You threatened me then, and you're threatening me now. And through all of it, you've assumed I'm powerless. You are powerless. Am I? I took a step closer. Brandon held his ground, but barely. Tell me about the warehouse contract, Brandon, the one you signed last week. How's that working out? His face went pale. How do you know about that? Performance metrics looking achievable? Equipment costs matching projections? Contract terms as favorable as they seemed? You set that up. You deliberately. I didn't do anything illegal. Just made sure certain information reached certain people. What they did with that information was their choice. Brandon's hands clenched into fists. You're sabotaging my career. I'm solving a problem. You became my problem when you involved yourself in my life. I'll prove you interfered. I'll prove you manipulated that contract. You'll do nothing. I took another step. We were almost chest to chest now. Brandon was taller, but I was broader, stronger from years of construction work. Because if you try to prove anything, you'll have to explain to your bosses why you signed a contract without proper due diligence. You'll have to explain why you didn't catch the penalty clauses. You'll have to explain why your district is now committed to metrics it can't meet. This is harassment. This is consequences. I kept my voice level, calm, which somehow made it worse. You wanted to establish understanding, remember? Man to man? Well, here's understanding, Brandon. You took something that didn't belong to you. Now you get to learn what that costs. I'm calling the authorities. For what? We're having a conversation in a public park. I haven't touched you, haven't threatened you, just pointed out some facts about your professional situation. Brandon pulled out his phone, hands shaking, dropped it, bent to pick it up. I didn't move, didn't help, just stood there, watching him fumble. This isn't over, he said. It's barely started. He backed away, nearly tripping over the bench, recovered his balance and walked quickly to his car. Got in, sat there for a full minute before starting the engine. I watched him drive away. Then I sat on the bench, looking out over the river. The jogger I'd seen earlier had circled back, was stretching near the parking area. He glanced over once, then went back to his routine. I pulled out my phone, checked the voice recorder app, stopped the recording I'd started when Brandon first approached, saved the file. Everything he'd said, all his threats, all his admissions, saved. That evening I drove past Brandon's condo. Both cars were in the parking garage, lights on in the fourth-floor unit, shadows moving behind curtains. I didn't stop, just noted the presence and continued home. My empty house felt different now, less like a loss and more like a workspace, a place to plan and think and prepare for the next phase. Because Brandon was right about one thing, this wasn't over. It was barely started. The call came at 6 a.m. Tuesday morning. Jack Turner? A woman's voice, professional and tired. This is Detective Sarah Morrison with county authorities. We need you to come to the station regarding a complaint filed against you. I sat up in bed. What complaint? Brandon Keller filed a harassment report. Claims you've been threatening him, interfering with his work, engaging in stalking behavior. Can you come in this morning? Am I being charged with anything? No charges filed, but Mr. Keller has a witness who corroborates seeing you at his residence multiple times over the past week. We'd like to get your statement. I agreed to come in at 9. Hung up, sat there thinking. Brandon had escalated. Filed an official report. Found a witness. Good. At the police station, Detective Morrison led me to an interview room. She was maybe 40, neat blazer, skeptical eyes that had seen too many domestic disputes. Mr. Keller claims you've been harassing him regarding your wife, that you've threatened him physically, interfered with his employment, and driven past his residence repeatedly. I spoke with him twice, once at a job site where he showed up uninvited, once at a park where he requested to meet. What about driving past his building? I drove past once. Public street. No law against that. Mr. Keller has a witness, building security guard who noted your vehicle multiple times. I pulled out my phone. Do you want to hear what Brandon said to me at that park meeting? Her eyes narrowed. You recorded it? One-party consent state. Perfectly legal. I played the recording. Brandon's threats. His admissions about wanting to intimidate me. His confession about taking property from my house. Detective Morrison listened without expression. When it finished, she leaned back. Mr. Keller didn't mention threatening you. People often forget details that make them look bad. You sound very calm about this. Should I be panicking? Most people would be. Harassment complaints are serious. Most people didn't have their wife taken and their house emptied by the person now claiming harassment. Morrison studied me. Mr. Turner, I'm going to be straight with you. Brandon Keller is scared. Actually scared. He claims you've been systematically destroying his life, that you manipulated his company into a bad contract, that you're following him. Did he provide evidence of this manipulation? No. Then it's his opinion, his paranoid opinion. I leaned forward slightly. Detective Brandon Keller started a relationship with my wife 7 months ago. He helped her empty our joint bank accounts. He helped load stolen property into his car. He showed up at my workplace to issue threats. He called me to a meeting where he made more threats. Everything I've done has been defensive. Everything I've done has been legal. Legal and ethical aren't always the same thing. Neither is taking another man's wife. But here we are. Morrison closed her notebook. I'm not filing anything based on Mr. Keller's complaint. His story doesn't hold up against your evidence, but I'm going to give you some advice. I'm listening. Stay away from him, completely. No contact, no driving past his building, no more recordings. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning, stop, because next time, I might not be so understanding. Understood. I left the station and sat in my truck, thinking about Brandon's panic. He'd filed a report, exposed himself to scrutiny, made his fear official record, desperate move, which meant he was truly desperate. My phone rang. Mike. Where are you? Tom's waiting to do final electrical inspection. On my way. I drove to the Morgan house, worked through the day on automatic, installing fixtures, grouting tile, checking measurements. Normal work, while my mind tracked different calculations. At 4 p.m., Mike pulled me aside. You've been distracted all week. What's going on? Police interview this morning. Brandon filed a harassment complaint. Mike swore. Seriously? Detective dismissed it, but it confirms something important. What? He's breaking. Jack. Mike's expression was worried. Maybe it's time to actually move on. Let lawyers handle the separation. Stop whatever you're doing with this guy. I'm not doing anything illegal. That's not what I'm worried about. Mike glanced at the house, at Tom working inside. I'm worried you're going to push this until something happens you can't take back. Things I can't take back already happened. My wife left. My savings are gone. My property was stolen. Those things are done. I'm just making sure the people who did them understand consequences. And when does it end? When it ends. I went back to work, finished installing the master bathroom vanity, checked the plumbing connections, tested water pressure, verified everything worked. Clean, precise, functional. That evening I received an email from Laura Benton. Mr. Turner, I need to inform you that Claire has filed legal notice demanding forced sale of your property. Her attorney has submitted paperwork to the court. You have 30 days to respond. I forwarded the email to a lawyer I'd consulted the previous week. He'd already reviewed my documentation, the bank transfers, the stolen property, everything Claire had done. He was confident we could delay the sale, possibly prevent it entirely if we demonstrated her misconduct. But delay wasn't what I wanted. I wanted Claire to understand exactly what she'd chosen. At 9 p.m., I drove to Brandon's building one final time, parked a block away, waited. At 9:40, both Brandon and Claire emerged from the building. They walked to his car, got in, drove away. I followed at a distance. They went to a restaurant downtown, upscale place, valet parking. Through the window, I saw them at a corner table, heads close together, having what looked like an intense conversation. I waited in the parking garage across the street. They emerged an hour later. Claire looked upset. Brandon looked frustrated. They drove back to his building, parked, went inside together. The lights in the fourth-floor unit came on, then went off 20 minutes later. I drove home, added notes to my file. The next morning, Wednesday, I received a text from David. "Hey man, weird situation with that warehouse deal. Med Supply is asking to renegotiate terms already. Something about costs being higher than projected. Thought you'd want to know." I stared at that message. Brandon's contract was collapsing faster than I'd projected, which meant his job security was collapsing with it, which meant everything was accelerating. Thursday morning, Claire called me. First time I'd heard her voice directly in over a week. "Jack, we need to talk, in person, today." "About what?" "About ending this nightmare, about both of us moving forward." "The coffee shop again?" "No, the house, our house. I'll be there at 3. Don't bring anyone." She hung up before I could respond. I told Mike I had a personal appointment, left the job site early, drove home. At 3 exactly, Claire's car pulled into the driveway. She got out slowly, looking at the house like she was seeing it for the first time in years. I opened the front door before she could knock. She came in, looked around at the empty spaces where her furniture had been. Her expression was unreadable. "It looks different," she said. "You took everything that looked good." "Jack." She turned to face me. "I came to apologize." That surprised me. "For what?" "For how I handled this. For not being honest sooner. For the way everything happened." She took a breath. "Brandon and I are having problems, financial problems. His job situation is unstable. The stress is affecting everything. That's unfortunate. I need your help." Now I understood. "You need money. I need you to agree to sell the house. I need my share of the proceeds. Brandon's company is restructuring. He might lose his position. If that happens, I need to have resources. So, this apology isn't about remorse. It's about access to my assets." Claire's face hardened. "There are assets. Half that house is mine. Half the marriage was mine too. You didn't seem to consider that. I made a mistake, okay? I thought Brandon was stable. I thought his job was secure. I thought we'd have a good life. I was wrong. So now you want backup resources, just in case your new life doesn't work out." "That's not what I'm saying." "That's exactly what you're saying." I walked to the kitchen window, looked out at the backyard. "You planned this for 7 months, Claire. You transferred money. You contacted a real estate agent. You had Brandon help himself to my father's toolbox. You did all of that while lying to my face every single day." "I know." "And now, because your new situation isn't as perfect as you thought, you want me to facilitate your exit strategy." She followed me to the kitchen. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I'm saying it? That I made mistakes? I'm admitting it. What more do you want?" I turned to face her. "I want you to understand that choices have consequences." "I understand that. I'm living with consequences. Brandon is stressed constantly. We fight about money, about his job, About you. About me? He's obsessed with you. Thinks you're sabotaging him. Thinks you're following us. He filed a report with authorities. I know. I spoke with them. Claire's eyes widened. You did? They dismissed his complaint. Turns out recording someone threatening you is good evidence. She went very still. You recorded him? One-party consent state. Jack, what are you doing? Protecting myself. Something I should have started doing months ago. This isn't protecting yourself. This is revenge. No, Claire. Revenge would be illegal. This is just making sure people face reality. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I'm calling Brandon. Don't. Why not? Because he's at a meeting with his district supervisor right now. Meeting that was scheduled this morning. Meeting about the warehouse contract that's costing his company more than projected. Meeting where he's going to have to explain why he didn't properly vet the terms before signing. Claire stared at me. How do you know that? I pay attention. You're doing this deliberately. You're destroying his career. I arranged an opportunity. He chose to take it without proper review. That's not my fault. You're a monster. I'm practical. There's a difference. Claire backed toward the door. I'm leaving. I'm taking Brandon and we're leaving this town. We'll go somewhere you can't reach us. With what money? Your share of this house won't be available for months. Brandon's job is unstable. You have no savings because you emptied them all already. She stopped at the door. We'll figure it out. Will you? Or will Brandon decide you're not worth the trouble when the money runs out? When his career is damaged and you're a financial burden instead of an upgrade? Her hand was on the doorknob. You don't know him. I know men like him. They move on when the benefit doesn't outweigh the cost. It's not personal, it's just business. Claire opened the door, paused. I never meant to hurt you this badly. Yes, you did. You just didn't expect me to notice. She left without another word. I watched through the window as she got in her car, sat there for several minutes with her hands on the steering wheel, then drove away too fast. My phone buzzed. Text from David. MedSupply terminated the warehouse contract, paying penalties. Thought you should know your contact might be looking for someone to blame. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, reviewed the timeline one final time. Everything had happened exactly as projected. Every action had led to predicted consequences. Claire had chosen Brandon. Brandon had chosen ambition over caution. Both had assumed I was too simple to understand their game. They'd been wrong. The house was silent around me, empty but mine, damaged but standing. I heard a car outside, looked through the window. Brandon's BMW was in my driveway. He got out, walked to my front door and pounded on it hard enough to rattle the frame. I opened it. Brandon's face was red, eyes wild. You destroyed me. I didn't do anything. You set me up. That warehouse deal, it was a trap. You knew it would fail. I knew you wouldn't read the contract carefully. That's different. He pushed past me into the house. Do you understand what you've done? I lost my job. They fired me this morning. I'm ruined. You ruined yourself. You signed a contract without proper review. You prioritized image over substance. You took shortcuts. Because I was distracted, because you were interfering. I was protecting my interests. You were the one who chose to involve yourself in my life. Brandon grabbed my shirt. I'll destroy you. I looked down at his hands, then back at his face. Didn't move. Didn't flinch. Take your hands off me, Brandon. Or what? You'll call the authorities? Tell them what? That I'm angry about you destroying my career? I'll tell them you broke into my home and physically assaulted me. I didn't break in. The door was open. Was it? I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. Because my security system shows you pushing past me without invitation. His hands dropped. You're recording this too? I record everything now. Learned that lesson. Brandon backed away. Claire was right. You're a monster. Claire made her choice. You made yours. I'm just the consequence you both forgot to calculate. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You have no job, no leverage, no resources to fight me. Your relationship with Claire is based on stability you no longer have. Give it 2 weeks. She'll realize you can't provide the life she left me for. She loves me. She loves the idea of you. The successful version. The version that looked better than me. But that version is gone now. Brandon stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched. For a moment I thought he might actually swing. Then something broke in his expression. The anger collapsed into something closer to despair. Why? He asked quietly. Why go this far? You asked me that at the park. I told you then. You took something that didn't belong to you. These are the consequences. He turned and walked out, got in his car, sat there for a full minute before driving away. I closed the door, locked it, went back to the kitchen table. My phone rang. Claire. What did you do to Brandon? Her voice was raw, close to breaking. I had a conversation with him. He's talking about leaving town, about starting over somewhere else, alone. That's his choice. Jack, please, I'm asking you to stop. Whatever you're doing, just stop. I'll sign anything you want about the house. I'll walk away from everything. Just please stop. It's already stopped, Claire. It stopped the moment Brandon lost his job, the moment you both realized the cost of your choices. We made mistakes. We hurt you, but this is too much. Too much would have been illegal. Too much would have been violent. Too much would have crossed lines I don't cross. All I did was make sure you both understood reality. Silence on the other end. Then, very quietly, I hate you. You don't hate me. You hate that I wasn't what you thought I was. You hate that I didn't disappear quietly. You hate that choices have consequences. She hung up. I sat in my empty kitchen in my empty house, looking at the spaces where furniture used to be, where a life used to be. Outside, November rain started falling. The drops hit the windows in irregular patterns, running down the glass like everything was dissolving. But the house stood. The foundation remained solid. The structure was sound. Damaged, yes. Changed, certainly. But standing. I opened my laptop one final time, reviewed the